Alright guys, Mike's not here today. He's had 2 back-to-back strongman seminars lately, so he'll be back next time. We're going to talk a little bit about mobility then. But for right now, most requested video I've gotten is for the deadlift, something similar to the squat, going through some of the technique things, some of the issues that people have commonly. And so that's what we're going to do today, because I want to make sure I get that out as soon as possible. Just like with the squat video, I'm not going to have time to go over every little detail of the deadlift, right? That's very individual. It depends on your leverages, your strengths, your weaknesses, those sorts of things. What I can do is give you all a discount code for my deadlift book that I've written. It's over 100 pages long. It's literally everything that I know about the deadlift. So if you're interested in that, it's going to be 75% off. You can find the link in the description of this video. But I'm going to get started now. Just like in the squat video, we're going to talk about a couple things that no matter what size you are, what your strength level is, what your body type is like, these things should pretty much be universal across different deadlift styles. The 2 things are balance and tightness. So we're going to go into each one of those in detail, talk about what it means. Starting with balance. Sorry about the noise. The key to balance is making sure that, first of all, the load is distributed equally across the major muscle groups that are involved in the movement. For the deadlift, that's going to be your back and your legs. Second of all, it's making sure that your center of gravity is balanced. In other words, that you're having a straight bar path throughout the movement. The more crooked your bar path is, the more you have to compensate for that lack of balance, and the more inefficient your movement is. So we're going for equally distributed load and straight bar path. So to start, equally distributed load, what does that mean? It's going to start with how you're setting up. If you're setting up too far away from the bar, it means you're going to have to pull back, right? Pull back to finish the deadlift. I'll show you what that looks like real quick. I'm very far away from the bar in this position. I go down, I have to pull all the way back like that to lock out. Obviously, pulling back is going to put more stress on my back. A lot of people think this, why would you be so far away from the bar? It tends to be an issue with larger guys, right? So, regardless of what your body fat level is, if you're a bigger guy, you're just going to have more stuff here, right? Your legs are bigger, your gut's bigger, your chest, arms, it's all bigger. It makes it very difficult to get in the right position. You can't get that close to the bar. And so that's something you're going to have to work around. It's also the reason that you'll see bigger guys tend to deadlift less than some skinny guys in lower weight classes. It's because the skinny guys are naturally able to get in a better position. The other problem, which ends up being very similar, is being too close to the bar. If I'm in this position, right, my shin's right up against the bar as I start, I'm not properly able to engage my quads, which are a major movement in the deadlift regardless of which style you're doing, right? So when I say you want the weight distributed equally between your legs and your back, that doesn't just mean your hamstrings, doesn't just mean your quads, right? It has to be hamstrings and quads. It doesn't just mean your lower back, it has to be your lower back and your lats. So first, right position away from the bar, which for most people is going to be about over midfoot. The second thing is to make sure that you're also using your back effectively. And the number one problem I see by far, people not using their back effectively, is they're not locking in those lats. What I mean by locking in the lats, you'll see me before I deadlift, pick my arms up, and then I pull them down. For me, that's a little cue to get those lats firing, because when I pick my arms up, I feel the lats stretching, my lats are real tight, and so that helps me activate. Sometimes you'll see guys shrug up like this. What they're doing is very similar, all right? When you're trying to activate your lats, you need external rotation around your shoulders. That means you're opening your shoulders up, getting them away from your body. That puts your lats in a position to work. As you externally rotate, you're going to retract your scapula, pull it back, and depress, pull it down, back and down. See? The opposite of that, obviously, is protracting and elevating the scapula, shrugging up like this, just like we're doing a dumbbell shrug. And so people do that for the same reason. By doing the opposite, it helps them cue to then pull back and down real nice. I'm going to show you what that looks like. First of all, I'm going to pull without using my lats, all right? I'm going to be internally rotated around the shoulders, slump forward. Oh God, that's very uncomfortable. Not only is it very uncomfortable, but it puts my low back in a compromised position, puts a lot of strain on the hamstrings, and it's inefficient in general. The difference, right? I'm pulling externally rotated shoulders, scapula back and down. I can get my chest nice and high. Bam. All right? So those two things, being balanced in your position away from the bar and making sure that you're engaging your lats properly, are going to help you distribute the load evenly across your legs and your back. Second thing, straight bar path. For the most part, the straight bar path is going to come as a result of doing those first two things. Again, remember this is balance. However, some people still have issues, and that usually comes by, it's usually caused by the position of their hips relative to their chest. Generally, the lower your hips are, the more your lower body, the more your legs are going to engage. The higher your hips are, the more you're going to use back. The secret to having an efficient deadlift is to find the balance between that hip position where you're in the sweet spot, where you're using enough lower back for your particular body, but not too much that you're straining that lower back every time you deadlift. For a lot of people, especially those who have ongoing lower back issues, that can be really difficult. So it's something you have to practice. You don't want to go all the way in the opposite direction, where you're dropping your hips real low, right? Real low, like that, because that's all legs. You're not using your back at all, and the back is a major movement in the major mover in the deadlift. So you don't want to make that mistake either. So the optimal hip position, the way you find it, you set up in position, you grab the bar. As you grab the bar, you think about using the bar to pull your hips down. And you're going to find that natural spot where you balance out, and all of a sudden the bar starts moving without you even thinking about it. All you're thinking about, holding onto that bar, staying tight, which we'll talk about next, and pulling those hips down. All right, so for me, it looks something like this. I don't even have to think about pushing the floor away, spreading the floor, engaging my legs. It just happens naturally as a result of trying to pull my hips down like that. So that's balance. Now we're going to move on to tightness. Tightness is a lot harder. I'm going to be honest with y'all. Tightness is a skill that you can learn through practice and that you can build through building strength. Your ability to stay tight is directly related to your strength. All right? The stronger you are, the easier it's going to be to stay tight. And the more you'll be able to stay tight and feel tight when you're lifting heavier weights, heavier poundages relative to your 1 rep max. So if you're just starting out and you say, stay tight, I don't know what that means, like if I squeeze the bar harder. Honestly, it probably means you need to keep training until you get a little bit stronger, until you're a little bit more comfortable with the movements and you have that muscle mass that's necessary to stay tight. But assuming you've been training for a little while, you've already built up some muscle mass, there's some cues, again, that you can do to stay tight. One we already talked about, right? That was pulling the scapula away from your body, down and back, right? That's going to help tighten up your lats. There are other things you can do as well. The first, I touched on a little bit earlier, and that's spreading the floor. So what's spreading the floor is a cue, right? So if I'm here, I'm trying to pull the floor apart with my feet, that's naturally going to engage my hamstrings and my glutes, right? The primary movers of the posterior chain. By engaging the hamstrings and glutes, as I lift the bar off the floor, they're going to stay tight, right? They're engaged, they're tight. Basically synonyms. The issue with a lot of people is that they try and rip it, right? You've heard that term before? They just try and go super fast, and they're not staying tight as they go down. You can move fast, right? You can be an explosive lifter and still stay tight, but it's very important that you engage those muscles first. So, we covered hamstrings, we covered glutes, we covered lats. Probably the most important one for the deadlift is the core, right? The core is something you have to keep engaged on every single move, and it's critically important, but it's most important on the squat and the deadlift because that's your support. If you let your core collapse, your chest is going to fall, your back is going to round, you're going to be in a terrible position, you're going to lose your tightness completely throughout your entire body, you're probably going to miss a heavy lift or possibly even hurt yourself. So you have to keep that core tight. Now I've talked a lot about this before, but essentially what you're doing when you're keeping your core tight Engaging the lower abs, pulling your hips under, squeezing those glutes. Engaging the upper abs, pulling that chest down, bearing down like you've got a quarter right in the middle of your abdomen, trying to squeeze that quarter. Tightening everything up and then pushing out as hard as you can. Similar to if you're blowing up a balloon, right? You've got this giant balloon or maybe even like an inflatable pool toy and you're trying to blow this thing up, you're going. As you do that, you feel your core engaging, right? You feel those muscles pushing out. You want to do that while you're squeezing your abs. That's important. And as you set up for the deadlift, you want to make sure that you're focusing on that. You're almost squeezing your abs as you squeeze the bar off the floor. That's going to help keep you tight throughout your entire body, and it's going to help keep your back and your legs in the proper position relative to each other to maintain that balance that we talked about earlier. There's one more thing that I want to talk about tightness. Really gets them. A lot of times you'll see guys, they want to be explosive. They want to lift fast. And what they do, they get up here, boom. Guys, if you see somebody bending their arms when they're deadlifting, go over and say something. I don't care. Like, stop them. Bending your arms when you deadlift is the #1 stupidest thing that you can do. First of all, losing all your tightness if you bend these arms. These arms are ropes, all right? They're connecting your back to the bar. All your power from your back is transferred to the bar through your arms. As soon as you bend those, you lose that power. So first of all, you're going to have a shitty lift. Second of all, as soon as you bend that arm, you put a lot of tension right on that distal bicep tendon. The purpose of the distal bicep tendon is to help supinate your hand, turn your hand over. Imagine you're deadlifting 400, 500, 600, 700 pounds, but all of a sudden you bend that arm. Imagine having 400, 500, 600 pounds trying to curl that shit. It's going to pop. You're going to rip, hurt, pull, tear, something, and now you're set back. Weeks, months, even years. So, no matter what, do not bend your elbows when you're deadlifting. Even at the top of the movement. Sometimes you'll see guys do this. Right? They get up here and do this little shrug shit. First of all, if the bar moves down in competition, it's a missed lift. So, you're risking that. Second of all, again, same risk with bending the elbow. Third, what the fuck are you trying to do when you're shrugging at the top of the deadlift? Trust me, if you're deadlifting heavy weights, your traps do not need more work. Incidentally, that's why I don't really like shrugs as an assistance movement for the deadlift. It's because I think nobody really has trouble activating their traps. If anything, they tend to overuse their traps. And second of all, because it encourages that arm bend or that downward movement of the bar at the top of the movement. So, no bending the elbow, staying tight throughout the movement. Let's talk about some other common problems, all right? The first, little controversial issue, this is the lower back rounding. It's controversial because some people are genuinely better off using a round back deadlift to lift. I'm really sorry about this noise, y'all. I've been waiting an hour, there's nothing I can do. So, round back deadlifting. There have been great deadlifters in history who have deadlifted with a rounded back. Bob Peoples, Lamar Gant. I could think of some more, but not right now. The round back is going to put you in a position where you have a shorter range of motion and you're relying more obviously on your back than your legs to lift the bar. Depending on your structure and your individual muscular strengths and weaknesses, that might be a good thing, or it might be a bad thing. It's really hard to say, and the only way to really find out is to experiment with the round back style and the straight flat back style. Unfortunately, the round back style for a lot of people, it puts them at a risk to be injured. And in my experience, more people are better off with a flat back and a little bit more leg engagement. And so I don't recommend trying the round back style, but if you're an advanced lifter who's struggling with your deadlift, it's something to consider, right? It's not necessarily right or wrong. I'm not going to demonstrate it for those reasons, but if you struggle, right, you can't keep your lower back flat. The answer to that is more core work. It's being able to keep your core tighter, it's being able to pull your lats down more. That's going to prevent you from rounding that lower back. In order to round my lower back when I'm lifting, I have to pretty much lose that intra-abdominal pressure. Now some people really practice this and are able to keep their core tight and round their lower back, but again, it's a skill. It takes a lot of practice. It's a very advanced technique, and it's not something I recommend. So if you end up finding that, hey, my lower back's rounding on the deadlift a lot, I'm really struggling with this, then the right thing for you to do is to do more core work and try and address that issue. Let's see, so we've covered tightness, we've covered balance, we've covered a couple common problems. I think the last things that we're going to talk about are more related to mobility and activation. And so I'm going to get to those next time when Mike's here. But I do want to do one last thing where I show you all the difference between the sumo deadlift and the conventional deadlift.
All right, we're going to try a little bit of a different technique. I'm just going to do a voiceover, and hopefully the sound is a little bit better for y'all. We're talking here about the difference between the conventional deadlift and the sumo deadlift, and I was saying how it's really not as an extreme difference as some people think. And I'm going to show you the difference in my style of pulling. Now, right now, I'm kind of going through the thing I was talking about earlier where my gut's a little big, and so I'm having a little bit of trouble getting in position for sumo. And so I've been pulling conventional recently. It's a temporary thing, but for now, it's a little bit more comfortable. But you can see the things we're looking for here are the hip angle, the torso angle and the position of the hips relative to the chest. And so you just saw where they were for conventional, and now I'm going to show you sumo, and you can see they're pretty similar, and that has to do with the width of my stance, but then also my leverages. For me, I have a good build for deadlifting. And so my positions are going to look similar regardless of which style I'm using. You can see my hips are just slightly lower in the sumo position and my range of motion is shorter, but for the most part my torso angle is the same. I'm going to show you right now how it looks from the side so you can compare that as well. But in general, unless you're strongly built for one or the other, right? You have a build that's very, very much favors conventional or very much favors sumo. You're probably going to find that your positions don't change as much as you might think. And for some people, it can make an extraordinary difference, just the width of your stance, because it'll change how high or how low you can keep your hips. Here's conventional again. You can see, I've got maybe about a 45, maybe a little bit less than 45 degree angle between my knee and my hip, and that's a good way to measure how high your hips are relative to your chest. And now you can see with the sumo, it's still, it's almost right about the same. So the best way to figure out whether you're better off pulling conventional or pulling sumo is to just try both and see which works for you. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to leave you with this recent deadlift set of mine. It's a beltless double with 700. I hope you enjoyed everything. Let me know what you'd like to see more or less of in the comments, and I'll talk to you next time.